Eden is not what God created in time. Eden is what God downloaded from heaven. And the moment Eden was created, the man had a context where he could relate with God. That's the dimension. God wanted to create another dimension because Adam did not understand that Eden is church. Adam did not understand that Eden was an envelope that could only accommodate Yahweh. So what he did was, through rebellion, he punctured Eden and Lucifer entered. And the moment Lucifer entered, the church vanished. Because the garden can remain, but the essence has been lost. The building can remain, but the essence has been lost. So God departed from Eden. And he said, they know not, neither will they understand. So they walk on in darkness, for the foundation of the earth have lost their causes. What it means is that God, who is the light, has been withdrawn. He had been withdrawn. So communion couldn't take place anymore. And when Jesus came back, he wanted to download Eden again. So he looked around and he walked with them for 3 years. And they could not find Eden because it's not on earth. Eden is a womb. It's a womb of the spirit where spirits are incubated. Eden is a womb of the spirit where spiritual intercourse takes place. And if you want to find Eden, you must journey into the spirit. So he said, who do men say I am? And they took the conclusions of the schools of thought. He says, some say you are Jeremiah. I think the Pharisees gathered together and they studied and they said, what we see in this dimension, it looks like Jeremiah. He says, some say you are Isaiah, some say you are John the Baptist. And he said, well, I have a message for you. All of them failed. Because what they are judging are manifestation. Only men who enter into the womb can find the question I'm asking. Because Israel knew the acts of God. Moses knew the ways of God. They saw the miracles, but Moses went to where the miracle was created. So Moses knows how miracles are performed. Israel only see miracle, but Moses enter into Zion. That's why he said, ensure that you build according to the patterns that were revealed to you on the mountain. If you can't go into the spirit, you can't bring Eden down, because Eden is a downloaded version of the tabernacles of Zion. So build according to the pattern. So he said, who do men say I, the Son of Man, I am? The school of thought, they failed until Peter stood up and said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus told him, what you did is that you traveled outside flesh. What you did is that you traveled outside time. What you did is that you traveled outside of human philosophy and ideology. You stepped out of earth. You stepped out of the visible universe. You actually stepped into the infinity dimensions. Because what you have just done is that you have downloaded another Eden. What God did for 6 days, Peter did in a moment. Because the one walking in the garden is the one standing with Peter. So when he said you are the Christ, he brought let there be light. When he said you are the Christ, he brought let the dry ground appear. When he said you are the Christ, he re-downloaded Eden. And Jesus said, upon this revelation, I will build my church. It's an organism. It's an organism. It's an organism. You can't have communion until there is a God and a context. It's called the structure of spiritual reality. This is why many are dry. This is why many can't know God. This is why many can't seem to access God. They have not journeyed. They have not journeyed. You can be in the market, but you can be in Eden. You can be in the bank, but you can be in Eden. So when all of us come together, what we do is that we are converging Edens, and it becomes a larger molecule. That's why I said, behold, how beautiful and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in harmony. It's like the dew upon Mount Hermon. There the Lord commanded his blessings. Please sit down. Rarina Bunasi Vakila. Berania Bunele Sevanias. Berekila Bondre Kabayanda Dibar. Letianda Sibak. Salanda Payanda Subaya. Omele Rianda Tara. Omele. Aliyah. They didn't understand. He said, go tell Pharaoh, Exodus chapter 8 verse 1, let my people go that they may worship me in the wilderness. And they thought it was about running away from captivity. And when they came to the wilderness, the Shekinah appeared upon the mountain, and he was dark. And he said, the Israelites should come. And they ran back because they did not understand that the Eden is not about the building. The Eden is about that envelope that comes out from Zion. And they ran back. But the Bible said, and Moses entered into the deep darkness, for there God dwells. Darkness is not of the devil. Darkness is actually the mysteries of God. God hides himself in darkness. What God did to Lucifer was to judge him with darkness. So darkness was actually the judgment of God on Lucifer. That's why he is shielded off from understanding the things of God, because he was the prince of the presence. He walked to and fro in the midst of the coals of fire. He understood the ways of God. So the only way God could judge Lucifer was to judge him with darkness. So if the princes of this world had known, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory, because the one that is called Jehovah Zephaniah, the one that hides himself with darkness. If you see the throne of God, there is a small dot, is a black dot, is a revelation of the mysteries of God. So in Deuteronomy 27:27, he said the secret things, the mystical things, the hidden things, they belong to God. But the ones that are revealed is an inheritance for his children. Eden came out in the wilderness, but Israel ran away. The reason is because their heart was darkened. But the only way we can live in Eden is by the kingdom, by the power, and by the glory. Because Eden can appear, and if you don't know the kingdom, the power, the glory, you can't walk in Eden. That's why many are in church, but church is not in them. Because they have been admitted, but they don't know the kingdom, the power, and the glory. So the last three dimensions of spiritual structure is actually the organogram of the workability of the life of the spirit. There is the spirit, there is the context, but there is an operational modality. It's called the kingdom, the power, and the glory. What is the kingdom? The kingdom is the regulatory government of Eden. The kingdom is the policies, the laws, and the wills of that spirit that wants to exist in Eden. You know, David built a house for God in 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 27. Solomon, and when he was blessing it, he now said, of the truth, will God actually live in heaven? He said, God is not in heaven. Will God live on earth? He said, how can the earth accommodate him? How can it accommodate him? How? So it's a privilege to be in church. It's a privilege to be part of the ecclesia. It's a privilege to be invited into the fellowship. John came and said, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have looked upon, and our hands have handled of the word of life. He said, that's what we commit to you. It's called koinonia. He said, our fellowship is with the Father is with the Father. It's a summon into fellowship. Eden, ecclesia, the church, is actually that womb of intercourse between deity and humanity. And when you come into that fellowship, then you collide with the kingdom. That's why I said, except a man be born again, he can't see the government. Being born again is an invitation into the fellowship of the divine. But to live in that fellowship, there is a kingdom, is a government. The moment he created the man in Genesis 1:26, let us make man in our own image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion. The man thinks dominion is the ability to rule the earth. He doesn't know that to exercise authority, you must be under authority. So what he was saying is, let the man come under government, that he may wield government. That is kingdom. That's why he said in Hebrews 12:28, having received a kingdom that cannot be moved, let us receive grace. Let us receive the ability to serve God acceptably and with reverence. For our God is a consuming fire. It's possible to work miracles. And when you show up, he says, away from me, you workers of iniquity. Because you can be invited, but only by government can you be approved. Only by the laws, the dominion, can you be approved. You know, that scripture balances the extremes of grace. Grace doesn't excuse, grace empowers. Grace actually empower you to live what they were trying to obey as rules and regulations as a culture. Because what the grace does for you is that it makes you a citizen of heaven. Because the laws of God derive from the nature of God. In the Old Testament, they kept the law to be approved. In the New Testament, grace approves us before we are sent. So why being approved? Grace goes further to empower us to begin to live it as a life. Because God does not lie. Man won't lie. Because it has become his nature. Because God does not fight. God does not fornicate. Man won't fornicate. Everything that is not consistent with the nature of God, grace now gives you the ability to express it. It's called kingdom. It's called kingdom. And if you don't know kingdom, you are not a citizen of Zion. I'm an apostle. Eden